Hey people, Shaman Hawk here for Shamanic Lodge. You know, I look for different things to give videos on, and some of the best sources are people's comments to my, existing videos, or they'll post something on another platform and I'll make a comment on it, and they'll say, well, could you explain that? Like, yeah, sure. So this one starts off with a response to Lisa.Winborn, and I'll go ahead and put her in the tags, on Instagram. And she was talking about voice-to-skull technology and how the government or whatever power can put thoughts and ideas into your head and so on. Well, this is very real. All right, how do I know that? Because I was part of experiments years and years ago, and I got to see where this was going back when I was in the Marine Corps in the 70s. But long story short, yeah, it's real. But you're going to see me bounce around a little bit in this video because I have a lot that I want to, condense into a shorter video, but to give people some things to think about. All right, so the voice-to-skull technology, when we say technology, we automatically think of like machines and all this other stuff. That doesn't really apply here, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. So what they do know is that they can send signals to people that will stimulate different sensations. And they've been studying this for a long, long time. The government actually has been really interested in mass control in a really easy, cost-efficient way. Back way before I was born in 1958. Actually, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the director of the FBI way back when, he would actually capture psychics, retain them, study them, test them, do all kinds of stuff. And the ones that were really good had to stay longer. All in the matters of national security, of course. All right, so Lisa was saying in her video, she understands why conspiracy theorists really try to protect their thoughts and, wear that tinfoil hat and things like that. Well, first, let me say that the tinfoil hat's not going to do anything for you. If anything, it would make it worse if they were sending strong microwave transmissions. What does work, if you want to learn about things like that and protecting energy, and by the way, metaphysics, think about that word, works a lot with physics. And if you want to protect things, let's go ahead and look at like Faraday's grid. There's good examples. Let's look at Wilhelm Reich's work, Tesla, Steiner. Even we can go back farther into, Hahnemann was around the same time, but Paracelsus, homeopathy. These are all energy signatures. We will study this stuff, in the 21st century. We go back a little bit. I mean, originally that's why we studied history in the first place, right? Because when you start to understand and compare metaphysics with real physics, in the real definitions of some of the terms, and by the way, I want to go ahead and also suggest you look at the proper meaning of things like vibration, frequency, resonance, amplitude, all right? And use, in your metaphysical talks, use those definitions instead of some New Age cliche. But go back and really study these things energetically. So, as an example, with the protection against this, with Faraday's grid, you're putting yourself in a grid of a conductive metal, and that will help. Again, that makes a 2-hour video right there explaining that. By the way, I made a bunch of notes so I don't drift off too many places. Here, so to explain energy works, and a lot of the technology that they're using, these government agencies and so on, has been around they're using the energy signatures and waves, okay, look up wave function. These things have been around for a long time. Let's take radio. Radio waves have been around for a long time. They're generated naturally. We get them from space. It's just that the people learned how to really isolate the radio waves. They learned about frequencies, the proper definition of them, and then they were able to do that. Here, back in 54 years ago, I built a crystal radio set. It's a radio set that would pick up AM radio waves, and you didn't need electricity to use this. You use it tuning condenser, your antenna, a diode, and headphones. And look up old tuning condensers, because the principle of how they work is much like reality and perceptions, or perceived reality and then accepted reality. And those are like the wafers in the tuning condenser and coming together, and that tunes you into the right frequency. Well, not the right frequency, the frequency in particular that you want. And again, that's another really long video. All right, so they're not doing anything new other than learning how to really, they're learning more about the effects of it on the human body. So like when Lisa was talking about how these people can send these thoughts into your head, you know, get you to do things, somewhat what they're really doing is they're sending the frequency, the exploratory frequency first, kind of like radar or sonar, sending that out and see what comes back. Hegelian dialectic, look up that one. It does the same thing too, but that's the next step. So you send this frequency out and you watch what the people do. All right, when you're watching what the people do, it's like, oh, okay, this particular frequency stimulates these things in people. And as shamans, we see these things happening in waves. Now, they can be naturally stimulated or artificially stimulated. When I say naturally or artificially, meaning by the astronomical, astrological effects, you know, geological effects, geothermal effects, you know, all these things in nature can stimulate and cause this reaction, but they can back engineer and go, okay, these things happen naturally and these people reacted in this way. So if we can create this same energetic environment, we can get the same response. Okay? And then if they can do that, then they can just put the other thoughts in the head through the mass media. And there we start to get the Hegelian dialectic, which is basically problem, reaction, solution. So they don't have to have a whole plan. They can just come in there and they go, oh, well, let's do this and see what happens. See what the sheep will do. And then they can go, oh, you know what, we can do this, and this will fit our financial agenda. Okay, we can create this scamdemic, watch what these people do, create this other story around it, you know, and reduce the world by 50%, population 50%, and so on. So people say, well, and I said, well, you can take this stuff and you can turn it back around. All right. So again, using the parable of the energetics in a scientific application, you say, okay, so how can I do that? First, you have to figure out what's interfering. When they were really trying to isolate radio waves, they understood there was some kind of a wave. So that means that there's this crest and trough. And they need to figure out, how can we work this? How does this work? We need to grab a hold of it and study it. Well, then they needed really good equipment. They needed nice equipment. And they were going through all kinds of stuff as they were trying to discover how to isolate these waves. We are the equipment. And we have this natural connection to the earth when we're not polluted. And by the way, the people who are doing all these things, they want to make sure that people don't have that real good connection. And when I was 40, 24 years ago, I was looking, by the way, I finished my shamanic apprenticeship in 1978, and that's when I became a shaman. I've been practicing daily since. So by the time I was 40, you know, so 20 years after I finished my apprenticeship, I was looking around like, wow, there was just so much to learn. There's just so much. It's just like, I don't know how to do, you know, if I can do all this. It was just awe-inducing, and I love that emotion. And then I was looking at nature, and you watch how animals know not to be where the volcano is going to erupt or where the hurricane's going to be, or they start prepping for the heavy winter and in June, July. And like, how do they know that? You know, they didn't learn this. They didn't tune into the Weather Channel, you know. They're part of it. And I'm like, oh my God. It's not about learning. It's really about unlearning, deprogramming, and getting back into that true essence of a human connection with the earth or in nature, the nature consciousness. And if you can do that, you'll be on the same wavelength they are, be able to tune the tuning condenser to different frequencies depending on how you're resonating with this, with your emotions, and that goes in with your desire. So it's never just a one channel kind of thing, but you'll be able to get the same memos they do, and you'll get it in these pictures. So when we say, oh, I had a vision, oh, I had a dream, that's when you kind of escape your programming garbage and you get into this, and it's like, oh, okay, I see that. But then programming can kick in, you don't pay attention, like, oh shit, I should have done what I had that dream about. All right, so it's really about the unlearning process. So for the last 24 years of my shamanic career, I've been taking people through massive deprogramming processes. And the first 2 years of an apprenticeship, shamanic apprenticeship, is totally devoted to that. After that, then I'm able to see what they are uniquely and build on that, and zoom. Man, I get people just cruising. So it's about, first off, how can you turn it back? First off, you have to clean yourself out. And how long does this take? It's about how serious you are. Kind of like, renovations of houses, renovations of the spirit and the person, cleaning up the environment. How dedicated, how serious are you? And actions are proof. Don't put shit in the machinery. And my dad was with NASA, and he took me down into the Space Center when we lived in Cape Canaveral. And where they're really doing the satellites and the really high-tech equipment, they're using only the best materials. And those people are in a dust-free environment. Those people are wearing full suits. They're not breathing on anything. Nothing. Okay? And that's, if you really want to be totally connected, that's how you need to be. Okay? And that's just a simple fact of it. One of the things, too, that is about is, again, going into New Age cliches, is about your personal power. Your personal power will already start to come to the surface as you do your deprogramming process. Because the programming, for instance, is, let's say you're born, and programming is like snow. All right, and it snows on you 10 millimeters, half an inch every day from day one. All right, and then these people go through these awakening phases, or the waves come through where people can really make these evolutionary jumps. The government and other controlling entities, they have their shamans who have their own agendas, and they'll tell these people, hey, be ready for this, because the people can make a big jump at this time, and we can't have that. So as you're going through your waves and your personal powers coming to the surface, other things come to you, or are revealed. Not really they're coming to you, it's just that you got into a higher level. Now, by the way, we like to think of these new age cliches as this good, bad, white light, dark light, light energy, negativity, and kind of get away from that. You have to look at in the context that saying's being used. Okay, so in other words, when we get to a higher level, well, what can we do? Well, we can see farther because of line of sight. The line of sight in physics, if you're 6 foot tall standing at the seaside, that horizon is about 3 hours away, 3 miles away, or what used to be called 1 league. The distance you can walk, the average person walks about an hour. So you get to that higher level because you're no longer being compressed. The programming is that compression. And so the more that you release, more things come up to the surface, like, oh, this releasing process, and it never ends. Well, it will eventually, but as you're going, you're like that tree trying to grow out of the concrete. Eventually, now that it gets into sunlight, now it can get more strength. And your strength is that knowledge and universal truths that help you grow, break through the concrete, break through the programming, and now you can see farther. Your visions are more expansive. So they don't want you to get into your personal power. So they're going to keep throwing more trash on you every time, just over and over again. So, and they want you to, like when fishing, you want that fish to run a little bit, thinking it's getting away because it's going to expend more energy. And it's easy for you as you're walking down that path to just throw this over here, throw this over here, and get people to stop and look, stop and look, stop and look, and slow down their progress. They might even go off into another path. Oh, look what I found, this new way. Yeah, okay, bye-bye. You know, and I watch this happen all the time because people want to do it their way, be unique. That is a human drive to be unique. But sometimes the ego gets involved and takes the person down the wrong path. So they put these distractions all over that. And by the way, here, let me give another example of energies, new age programming, defensive and stuff like that. So when people say, well, if you're going to protect yourself against negative energies, you know, and let's say like this, you know, voice to skull technology. So let's just say black magic, okay? Let's just be animated about that. And people say, well, if I just bring down the white light, you know, if I don't believe in negativity, it doesn't affect me. Yeah, kind of like gravity, hurricane force winds, and things like that, right? And so somebody throws a bean at you, all right? And they come up and they throw this bean at you, and you're like, I'm going to bring up my shields. And you hold up this piece of paper, and beep, see, my shield works around this negative energy. Okay, that's all good until that person picks up a brick. You know, whoops, paper didn't do shit, did it? All right, so you have to look at the reality of it, the reality check of it. And a good way to do your reality check is we call that three-legged stool. Look at something, triangulate, look at something from three completely different perceptions. If it's truth, you'll be able to be stable against those three different directions, okay? And by the way, if you have a metaphysical theory, if it's true and possible, there's an example of it already existing on the physical plane. Let me go over to my other notes here. Sometimes my old ass even has to put on glasses. Here, when these people are doing this, and we're just going to coin the term, the voice to skull technology, it's about programming. They want to change your programming, kind of like updating your phone, your laptop, or whatever. And it's like they got to get you into this mode of thought and emotional state, you know, to where you say, okay, I'm ready to update. I'll go along with this. I'll change my belief system and go your way. And they have to do that. So that's that kind of a balance they have to get you at. And then they go, okay, now we can do this to the people. We can put this out on the airwaves through the mass media. And then we can give some physical examples with us conspiracy people called false flag ops. And people, oh, look, it happened. It's true, you know. And then you watch the effect. Here, I'm sure the people who come up with these programs now are just shitting in high cotton. Okay, that's a southern term. They're happy. They're really happy. And because they got people to wear these masks for 2.5 years so far. Why do I think that's funny? In case, going back to follow the science, you know, look up what a unit of measurement called a micron is. Look at the measurement of a virus, how many microns of virus is, and how much microns of space is in between the fibers of this mask. I did nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare training in the Marine Corps. And when I'm listening to the narrative, and I and other veterans are just like, okay, this is bullshit. But they go, stay within that 6 feet, you know. Okay, so my safety in this 6 feet will move along with me to the next 6 feet. If any of this was true, all right, I want you to think back when they were first starting no smoking sections in restaurants. Okay, it's okay if you got this lattice here. These people on this side of this little screen can smoke, but you can't over here. You get it? But you're smelling it, because the smell is a positively charged ion. Okay, I have to keep going into these examples, people, because if I don't get people to think in a spherical form, they're just flatlining like this paper. It's just this two-dimensional. You know, look up dimensions, the proper use of that word dimensions. You know, so you have to be in the spherical thought to have a complete, and the only way that you're going to be able to do that, and by the way, women are really good at with this when they ditch the fear, guilt, shame thing. If you get into this spherical thought, and I was trying to teach this in 2019 at the last year I was traveling Europe doing lectures and stuff, and I was telling people, you'll be able to look at the news and immediately know if this is truth or bullshit, and you will automatically start to switch your frequency searches to find the truth and tune yourself into that natural focused attention. But people don't do it. They want their story, you know. And of course, right by I came back, I was first week of March 2020, boom, scamdemic hit. You know, so right now they're trying to reprogram you in that. And to do that, all right, let's look at magnetism, because one of the things that I did, you know, in my kind of like my thesis in shamanism, you know, is to prove that you could program an animate life signature into an inanimate object. And if you look at magnetism, you know, you have nickel, cadmium, and iron. They have free electrons, and the magnet influences those free electrons. And then so the next time you put a magnet into your silverware drawer, it's like, oh, I can pick up a nail with a spoon. Well, yeah, it's been influenced. Well, that characteristic of that spoon has been altered a little bit. You could say enhanced, and you start looking at how they use these words on social media. You know, it's like, okay, well, this is enhanced human. You know, yeah, that's GMO, dude. You know, I kind of like my organic version. So going back into how can we reverse this stuff that's being done to us? Again, it's this constant radar, sonar kind of application. You ping, what did I get back? I put this out. You're always on this search, you know, for the truth, you know, for what's reality. I think there's three: universal reality, chemistry, physics; perceived reality, how you think things are; and accepted reality is how you act on your perceived reality. All right, so you can help people download. You can download a lot of stuff that I'm telling you, because you won't really integrate this information until you're kind of unblocked, or you can tap into a frequency. So let's say you get that radio wave out there and you have your homemade radio and you hear it. With the old tuning condensers, you had to like really tune this thing, fine tune, until you could get it. And now if there wasn't a lot of interference, and if on the AM radios, you could listen to Australia at 2 o'clock in the morning, because back in the day when these were being built, TVs went off the air at like 9, 10 o'clock at night. So the airwaves were clear. So if you don't have the clear airwaves, now you have to really be able to focus on that frequency. Meanwhile, the other person, now that they want to engage in the communication, they have to make their frequency even stronger. So you had your regular natural radio waves, and then finally you had, like, you know, you have UHF, VHF, microwaves, and it got a lot stronger. Well, that force has its effects. And when they started studying the effects on people, the same thing. You know, back in the day, not long ago, they didn't allow you to build under high voltage wires traversing across the country because of simple electromagnetic field and the adverse reactions from that. You know, so all these things are bombarding us. And meanwhile, people talk about, yeah, you know, I got to really be careful about this stuff, as they're holding a phone next to their face. You know, it's like, come on, people. So, meanwhile, other people are talking grounding. Grounding is good. Well, grounding is great. And grounding, for those of you who don't know, is walking along barefoot. You know, you watch children, the last thing they want to do is put on shoes when they can go around barefoot. They want that connection because that mind is still absorbing. So this is one other practice with that. You know, when people are like hugging trees, you know, and of course the mainstream media, oh, tree hugger, you know, because they don't want you making that connection. Sitting on the ground is another one. Laying on the ground, you know, taking a nap in a hammock. Awesome things, to help you in your deprogramming process. But until you make a program for deprogramming and get yourself onto your practice, you just kind of like, you're always on page 1 or 2. And you need to get down deeper into the book of you, into the real, and again, like I said, that's the real part of the journey process. By the way, also to be able to realize how you can undo some of these things that's being done to you, you have to accept some truths. And some of these truths are kind of scary to a lot of people. And you have to, these things that you hear about with these people drinking, you know, the adrenal chrome, making these child sacrifices, doing all these other things, these people, these elites that do these horrific ceremonies, they're doing it because it works. That's the simple truth about it. And people don't want to see that. But these people, a handful of people, can manipulate a world of billions because they're willing to do what needs to be done to attain their direct agenda. They're willing to ditch all the programmings of what's right, wrong, ethics, all that. They're going to do this because this will get me the energy, the power. This will tune me into the frequency that I will get more how-to moments, you know, to be able to further my agenda. But the people don't. Now, I'm not saying that we would have to go out and do that, you know, anything but that, because there's other energetic exercises that can get you the same information on how to prevent these people from going further. But because of religious and personal programming, people don't want to do the good exercises, the nature-oriented exercises. Oh, that's bad. That's Satan too. It's like, so shamans are stuck in the middle. You know, it's like, okay, well, I'm with you. I don't want to do the evil shit either. But here's the other things that we can do. No, I don't want to do that either. Well, then you just need to put your head down and keep grazing with the rest of the sheep and just shut up. Get out of the way so we can go ahead and do our thing to try and avert this almost inevitable disaster that's coming up in the future. You know, let me look through my notes here again. By the way, let me just, here, all of this in turn is help, if you accept, I'm not saying, hey, believe me, you know, I have the infinite knowledge, but I just want you guys to have an open mind to what I'm telling you. All right, because if you will accept this, at least look at this with an open mind, you're already starting to tune the dial to that tuning condenser to be able to be more open into the receiving into that, from that channel of information, you know, and being able to make another jump. But at first, you have to realize some truths. I don't know any other way to say it. Some of these truths, if you can look at that like, yeah, okay, I can see how that makes sense, that's one more little twist of the dial. And the more you can turn that dial right in the right direction and be aware of what's coming back, because accepting a lot of the knowledge will start to change your life. You can't unlearn things, unsee, unhear things. You know, speaking of which, the mind can travel really fast in making its updates. All right, the body cannot. The body is dictated by what's called a time constant. The time constant, the time's dictated by a couple of things: the planet you live on and your heartbeat. Let's keep it real simple. The heartbeat is like the second hand of the clock, and this is the clock. Okay, you. And so your mind can make these shifts, and like, oh wow, or they can tell you things. Someone can tell you things, and then all of a sudden they get the goosebumps and everything. That's a mechanism in there to slow that process down, because you can go too far too fast. Okay, so, and that's why a lot of times we don't tell everybody everything. We wait for signs to show us they're ready for that update. And that update process, they can get it. You got to give it to them bit by bit and watch the registry on the person before you can go ahead and give them the next piece. And I've experienced that super downloaded thing. And again, that's another video, but that was one horrific moment where I thought that every atom was just going to leave, and just like, freaking out. It's like, but after that, that quickening, so to speak, that shamanic awakening is just like, okay, I get it. And all the other stuff does fall off. But you have to allow the process. I'm just going to stop there. You have to allow the process. Okay? You're going to interpret the information that you get from being in that connection through your programming. Okay, if you have a dirty water filter, you put really bad water in it and it comes out a little bit better, well, how good's your filter? How toxic is this? Or are we making the right thing? Are we making the right equation here? Because you're going to interpret anything you get through your programming. So a shaman, any good shamanic teacher, and they're not always the same, can give you the best information, but your past events, your programming, everything, that's how it's going to get interpreted, is through that. And that's why, you can take somebody through this great journey and have this process happen in sacred site structures. By the way, sacred, that adjective in there, geometry, is really not sacred at all. And I don't need to put it down. It's just that the people who were bringing up all these subjects way back when, they had to do that to sell it to the priest, or the high priest, the king, the lords, or whatever, so they didn't get burned at the stake for heresy. They had to really sparkle up and spice their words. But the truth is, these are just simple laws of metaphysics that work. Feng Shui is about the closest example, but that works. Their methodology, a lot of the basic stuff will work anywhere. But again, they interpreted that knowledge through their programming and through their language, which comes from the land. So the real land speak process is to get the alchemy and geomantic qualities that are best for your area and you in that time. Meaning that you can make a structure that's good for this particular thing, and how you use that structure in the first couple months, let's say at least 90 days, starts to make the foundation of that programming and operating system of that structure. Simple truth, no magic or anything else. If you want to do